Turning design inputs into tangible design outputs is a critical step in developing safe and effective medical devices or combination products. But without the right design controls and risk management processes, things can quickly go off track. Hi, this is Chuck Ventura with Ventura Solutions, your go-to consulting, staffing, and training partner for medical devices and combination products. In this video, we're diving into the design output stage, exploring how design controls and risk management come together during this crucial phase of product development. And if you're interested in learning more about these topics, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. We got a lot more content like this coming soon. So let's jump in. During the design output stage, because the outputs of the DFMEA are going to do two things. They're going to trace up to our system risk assessment or our hazard analysis and drive that risk assessment further and ensure we have all the right design inputs in place for our finished design. But at the DFMEA level, they could also drive specific design outputs. So for example, you may realize that there's a certain leak failure mode, right? And because of that, you need a critical design tolerance between an ID and an OD. Depending on the risk level, you may want to make some critical dimensions on those features. And that would be defined in the mitigation section on your DFMEA, which is going to drive those critical features or specifications on your final design outputs. During this stage, we should also be starting to develop manufacturing process or be leveraging an existing manufacturing process. So we'll also be doing a PFMEA, which analyzes process failure modes. So DFMEA and PFMEA during that design output stage are going to trace up to your system risk assessment. And by the way, we don't do patient risk assessments in our FMEAs. We try to keep that constrained to the function of the device or the manufacturing process, but we trace them to sequence of events in the system risk assessment to understand the impact to patient or user harm, and also to ensure that we're not missing any hazardous situations, sequence of events at the risk assessment. So that being said, those risk management elements have to also be done usually in the design output phase. Now, I touched briefly on the use FMEA, which is referred to as the use-related risk analysis, right? From a risk management process. That could be started as early as the concept stage, and you want to create that first version in the design input stage, because a use-related risk analysis is looking at each user task for your product and looking at potential risks and use errors and identifying controls, right? It also assesses patient risk and harm, etc. But we want to create that in the design input stage, right? Because we finalize the concept, we should know the steps to use the product. And we could do that risk analysis early in the design input phase. It traces to our system risk assessment. And then ultimately the output of all that drives a set of risk controls that drives our design inputs. So that use-related risk analysis also should be in the design input phase. As you're evolving the design, the use-related risk analysis will get updated in the design output stage. Now, as I mentioned, that design input stage could be 20 to 30% of your project schedule. How much time you allocate for your design output stage? That's a great question, but it's really dependent on how complex and what technical challenges you foresee with your product development. I know I always plan for at least a minimum of 3 design iterations. So how much time does it take, whether you're doing a mechanical product, a software product, electrical product, electromechanical product, to go through one full design iteration, prototype, do all your engineering study loops, do your pre-design verification, and have some confidence in your product? How much time does it take to go through one whole design iteration? And I would plan for at least 3. You could have many more, right? Very rarely are you going to have less than 3. So take that into consideration when you're developing your schedule. Now, from there, you're coming out of your design output stage. You do not want to exit design output stage until you finalize your design outputs. You passed pre-design verification and multiple engineering study loops. You understand your product reliability. You're confident that it could survive certain shipping conditions and accelerated aging conditions. If you've done all of that, you may be getting ready to get to design freeze. But this is a very critical stage, and I see companies all the time trying to rush through this stage also. And especially with companies getting off the shelf products, right? Don't underestimate the amount of effort to do that pre-design verification testing, because that's going to be critical to ensuring you passed your design verification. Okay, so this is again a high-level overview of what goes on in the design output stage and what design outputs are and the associated risk management. Okay, so that's a lot, right? Talking about concept stage, design input stage, design output stage, there's a lot there, right? So you can see this takes a lot of time and effort, even for off-the-shelf products. But once we get to design freeze, now the product goes under configuration management at a whole nother level, right? Because we're going to start going into verification and validation stages. And if you make any changes, you need to have to follow a very tight change control and configuration management process to ensure your testing is on track with your full design and development process, right? This is especially true when you have various subsystems. And if you start verification testing at a system level and you make a change at a subsystem level, you don't want to have to go back and maybe repeat all the testing, but you have to definitely do an impact assessment and determine what could be impacted and what needs to be tested. At a high level, what is verification and validation? Design verification is the benchtop testing, analysis, or review to ensure the design output, which again is your final finished product, matches or meets its design inputs. So design verification ensures that your design outputs meet your design inputs. Design validation ensures that your final finished product meets your user needs, right? So let's talk about this in a little more detail. Usually design verification is engineering benchtop testing or biocompatibility testing or chemical testing. It's very rigorous engineering or scientific testing at the benchtop level to ensure the design outputs meet the design inputs. Then once you pass that, you can move on to design validation, which essentially is taking users or patients, putting them in a simulated clinical use environment, giving them the product and ensuring that the product meets the user needs. I'm going to give a simple example here. Let's say with a pre-filled syringe, I use this example all the time because it's so simple and easy. Let's say you have a user need where the user says, "It shall be easy to expel the drug from the syringe." That's a reasonable user need. We translate that into a very specific design input. The force to expel the drug, the break loose force or expulsion force to expel the drug shall be less than 6 inch-pounds. User need, easy to use, design input, less than 6 pounds of force. So how do we verify and validate that? Verification, we will write a protocol, and at the benchtop level, maybe on an Instron or some mechanical system, we'll actually do an engineering test to see if it's less than 6 pounds to expel the drug. If it is, then we check the box. Yes, our design output, which is the design, meets the design input that it shall be less than 6 pounds to expel the drug. We pass design verification. That's good, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're done, because what if we chose the wrong number? What if 6 pounds isn't the right number? We don't know for sure. And also there's things about the design that are hard to capture, like the gripability and other aspects, right? From a user standpoint. So now the FDA wants us to go into validation. Again, write a validation protocol, put the product in the user's hands or the patient's hand, whoever the user is, have them expel the drug and ask them the question, was it easy to use? Maybe on a scale from 1 to 5, and we have some acceptance criteria. If they say yes, then we pass design validation. But it's possible they could say no, and they say, no, this isn't easy to use, it's terrible. If that's the case, we have to go all the way back to the beginning of the development process and figure out what went wrong. Potentially changing our design input and changing our design, redoing design verification, and ultimately redoing design validation. I want to make a note that design validation also a lot is covered by human factors summative testing, right? And the human factors is also a fascinating process that we could spend all day talking about, right? But in general, you'll do early human factors formative testing. That could happen in your concept stage through your design and development process. And then you have a summative human factors testing, which could cover a lot of your design validation. Hey, I hope you found this video helpful as we explored the design output stage and how design controls and risk management play a key role during this phase. If you're interested in learning more about the next stages like design verification, validation, and further risk management considerations, make sure to hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss out. And if you ever need any consulting, staffing, or training support related to any of these topics, please reach out. My team and I will be happy to help. See you next time.